culminating assignment, I'm going to teach you how to shoot a recurve bow. So the anatomy of this bow is this is the riser right here. This is where the arrow rests, and then these are your limbs, and this is the string. What makes this called a recurve bow is the curve, and then it curves back again. And what this does is this creates more tension in your draw with a less draw weight, so you get more power for the amount of weight you're actually pulling back. So on the arrow you have just your four main parts: the tip, the shaft, fletchings, and the nock. Alright, so nocking the arrow to the string. What you want to do is place the shaft on this black rest piece right here, and you want to attach the green nock underneath the gold pin, and you want to make sure you hear the click. Now when you nock the arrow, you also want to make sure that the odd colored fletching is pointing away from the bow, and what this does is reduce the friction between the fletchings and the bow itself. So the protocol when you shoot typically is you always have one foot in front and one foot behind the line, shoulders squared, shoulder width apart, of course, and you want to make sure no one's downrange collecting their arrows, or in the forest looking for theirs. So what you usually say is, after everyone's done shooting, you say clear, and that makes sure that nobody's there, because if they hear that, they'll shout something to make sure that you don't start shooting. And also when you start shooting, you say clear as well. One more thing you want to do when you shoot is you want to make sure you're holding your bow at the same level that you shot, so that your arrow doesn't drop as you lower the bow, because a bad habit to get into is to drop the bow too soon, and that actually will throw off your aim. So a big thing with traditional shooting is consistency. Because you're not using a sight, you're not able to exactly know where your arrows are going. It's more like throwing a baseball, where you kind of just know where it's going to go after you do it enough times. So one of the things to help with consistency is to have a certain point that you draw back to all the time when you shoot, and this is referred to as an anchor point. So for me, what I usually do is I have my index finger touching the edge of my lip, my elbow is all the way back, and my thumb kind of rests under my chin a bit. Tool using a traditional bow is the glove, and they're usually made of leather, and you wear this glove because you have a lot of tension or pressure on your fingers when you pull back the string, so you really need that extra piece of protection. So it's also important to know how to pull out your arrow from the target, because it is possible to bend or break your arrow when you pull out your arrow if you don't do it correctly. What you want to do is you want to firmly grasp with both hands the closest part of the arrow to the target, and you kind of want to brace the target with your body and pull out. So what not to do when pulling out your arrow is grabbing it by the fletching or away from the shaft and kind of yanking to the side, because especially if your arrow is extremely deep inside the target, you have a high risk of fracturing the shaft of the arrow. So even as somebody who's been shooting for a couple years, you can expect to lose a lot of arrows and miss your target. So an important part of archery is knowing how to find your arrows and what to look for. What you want to look for are the bright colored fletchings of the arrow, or the feathered ends, and the nock, or the tip of the arrow that attaches to the string, because those are the brightest parts of the arrow, and that's what it'll give away. So when you kind of follow the direction you were shooting in, you want to kind of approximate where your arrow might be and look for it. And this one's fairly easy to find, it's just right here. But if you're shooting on a rainy day or something, your arrow could end up in the mud, and it's okay to lose arrows, because it happens a lot.